What I focus primarily on, in addition to my commercial and personal photography, is photography education. And so this is, some sample shots from my portfolio. You can go to ronmartinsen.com or photos.ronmartblog.com to see some of these. And so what I have over here is my blog. If you scroll down through on the right-hand side, which this may not paint very well, so I'll try to go slow, you have software reviews, gear reviews, go down a little further, book reviews, and then services and so on. And there's archives of all the blogs through the past. And more importantly, up top, got some of my recommendations on equipment, popular articles, discount codes, printing series, which has been really popular. That was something I did along with great support from X-Rite and Epson and Canon. I'm an X-Rite Colorado. And then some hot deals from my partners that come out from time to time, and a little bit more about me. You can also feel free to interact with me and ask questions on Facebook, ronmartblog.com. You can also do my contact page from the website. A lot of people will actually email me instead of using Facebook. So with that, let me go ahead and close this down, and let's go ahead and get started. So as I mentioned, I do a lot of photography education, and one of the things that I get from some of my clients and students is that photography is a hobby for them. It's not a lifetime thing that they want to spend all their time on. They want to make the most of their equipment and get great shots, and so they want to simplify their workflow. I constantly hear people saying, just let's simplify it, simplify it, simplify it. And with the wealth of third-party add-ons that are out there, the question comes, do I need all these? How can I just, get one thing and do everything that I need to do? And Adobe makes, great products like Photoshop Elements and Lightroom and, of course, Photoshop. But, what I hear from some people is that it's too overwhelming, too expensive, whatever the case may be. Just, how can I make things just really simple? And I've been working with onOne since my blog first started up. And I've seen this product evolve, and Perfect Photo Suite has evolved into something that really can be run standalone as a complete solution. This is not running inside any other product. This is just a Perfect Photo Suite product running standalone. You're kind of responsible in terms of how you get your files. These days, people, maybe just editing images from their phone, so they could use, Dropbox, Google Drive, or iCloud, or OneDrive to get to their photos. They may have uploaded them, through some tool that came with their camera. But basically, what you get in the browse mode of Perfect Photo Suite is just a way to, quickly see your photos like you would in Explorer or Finder. And I'm a Windows user. I'm also a Mac user. Both products work fundamentally the same. I'm just working with Windows today just because that's my preference. And so, one of the things that's really cool too is that Perfect Photo Suite actually works with Photoshop PSD files with layers. And so, let's say you start off and you're not really to make the commitment to Photoshop. But down the road, you decide, hey, that's what you want to do. The really cool thing is that all these things you're doing with layers, they're being stored in a Photoshop file that you can open up in Photoshop standalone and still see all your layers. So really great feature. And if you've already created files in Photoshop separately, they'll be viewable here. So I can see my original JPEG and my Photoshop edited file, or my, in this particular case, file that I edited in Perfect Photo Suite 8. In fact, all of these are before and afters. And certainly Photoshop's a great product. There's a lot of things that it can do that you can't do in here. Same thing with Lightroom, has some really great things with asset management and being able to search and find your files. So I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with those products. This is more about if you're looking for information on how to have a workflow that is just using one product, this is what this webinar is about today. And a lot of cool things we're going to show you as to what you can do. So with that said, let's go ahead and kick this off. So I'm going to come over here and go to my webinar files. And let's just start with something really simple right off the bat. Sometimes you have an image that you just want to do some really quick, simple effect. I can, come in and enhance it and just enhance the colors and call itself done, or I can do some black and white. So I'm going to just do some simple black and white work on this. Now, you can edit your raw files. For the demo today, for efficiency reasons, I'm going to be using some JPEGs that have been resized. Because they're JPEG, there's no reason to create 16-bit because they're already 8-bit. That's the maximum that you're going to get from your JPEG. So I'm going to do that, say edit a copy, and click OK. So now what this is doing is it's opening it up in perfect black and white. And I can, come in and manually spend a lot of time, tweaking this image to my heart's content. But one of the cool things about many of the third-party plugin products these days is that they have a bunch of presets. That's really, what you're trying to do with these is save time. Can you do these things, standalone in just Lightroom or just Photoshop? Absolutely. But what you're buying when you buy this product is the efficiency and speed of these great presets and filters that have been created to help speed things up for you. So one of the things I really love is that, I don't know what I want to do with this file. I mean, it looks okay, but could it look better? They have this little thing here that if you click on it, what it's going to do is it's going to take your actual image and apply all these presets to it so that you can just scroll through and see what it's going to look like. And I mean, I really love this because it allows me to quickly come up with a nice effect that somebody spent a lot of time working on to build this effect. But for me, I don't have to really do that much to it. I get to leverage other people's work and get to something really fast. And so I can, make these previews much bigger. I can make them smaller. And, I can go through and just kind of get an idea of what sort of options I have for it. So I'm going to just scroll through so you kind of get an idea. If you haven't used this product before, there's really a lot of just fantastic presets that have been created by pro photographers based on their own workflows. And so don't feel like that you're going to have something that's really cheesy, because this is stuff that people really do for their commercial photos and so on. So it's just good stuff. So I'm going to actually, for this demo, one of the ones I really like to use is called, Hobart. And where did that sucker go? Yeah, actually. That's one thing I actually wish they had, was a really nice search feature. But you know what? Actually, it brings up a good segue. What I can do, since I can't find the one I'm looking for really quickly right now, whoops, I can say it's not Hobart, Bogart, sorry. That's why I couldn't find it, Bogart. I can see Bogart and then come in here, choose that preset. It's a pretty cool looking preset. There's actually some other variants of it that I like a lot. And once I've got that as my starting point, I can go through and make any sort of changes to it that I want. I can adjust the tone curve if you're a curves type of person. I can turn effects on and off. So if I've added some intensive glow, and then if I decide I'm not sure if I want to do that or not, I can quickly see just that effect with it on and off. What sort of result that I'm getting with it. If you're really into old type of film grains and so on, you've got functionality for doing that. Some people really, like using film grain from their old favorite films. Those come from the film world, so they have a lot of simulations of that. And then you can just manually dial these in. I'm not a big film grain guy, so I'll usually turn those off. And then something else that's really cool is you can actually put some borders on your image. And one of the ones I really like is the film preset. And they have a bunch of different variants that you can do, and you can change the opacity and so on. But the basic idea here is that very quickly, without a lot of thought or effort, I've got an image that's nicely edited and something that I might actually hang up. If I wanted to sharpen it, I could do that, and I could spend as much time or as little time as I want here. That's the cool thing. If I save and close it, then now I have a PSD file that has that functional or that edit in it if I go back over here to layers and edit the original, I can see that it still has my original image in it, and it has a new layer called Perfect B&W that shows exactly what I did. And sometimes, I'll come in and give these a little bit more description, to say Bogart. And that way, when I go back later down the road and I look and see, how did I get that effect? Because maybe I want to do that to another one. I'll actually have that information stored in the file. So I'll save and close that. Oops. One of the downsides to doing a webinar is that it slows your computer down quite a bit. So you'll notice that there's some delays that we'll have today and things may be a little misbehaving, but please keep in mind that's not actually the product. It's the fact that we're recording this webinar simultaneous, so my apologies for that. So next up, we're going to do some just real simple images today, just for time's sake. But some really cool effects that hopefully you'll enjoy. So this one right here is a shot that I took up in Mount Baker. I really thought the sky looked cool when I was coming home, but the image, they never really come out exactly like you see it, and you think, gosh, I wish this was a lot better. This isn't really quite as impressive as it was when I was there. So that's why we edit our photos. We want to give it a little bit more dramatic flair. So for this one, I'm going to come over to Effects. That's where I spend a lot of my time when I use this product suite. And I use a variety of product suites. This isn't the only one that I use, but this is a great product that I definitely go to from time to time. And so in here, I want to go over to the presets tabs. In addition to having individual filters, there's actually presets, which are you can think of as a collection of these filters that have been applied together to create some cool effect. And this was a scene that was taken during the summer, and really awesome sky. So I probably want to go take a look at landscape as a place to go. Start to try to find an image that works for it. And since I can see all these thumbnails really quickly, I quickly see that this one grabs my eye first. This is getting to be like what I saw when I was there. So if I look at what happened when I did that, it actually applied 3 filters stacked up. So just like Photoshop has layers, there's layers within this product, both within the layers feature as well as the individual components have their own concept of layering. And something really interesting too is that these layers are kind of like smart layers or smart objects in Photoshop, because if I delete this glow effect, it's going to actually go and remove that from the workflow and reapply these filters again, so that I didn't have to delete this layer and go choose color enhancer again. It actually just removed the glow effect and then reprocessed with what we had done before. So that's really cool. So what I like to do is, even though I can do a lot of things in effects, sometimes I want to have layers broken out, so that way if I want to go back and see how I got a special effect, that I'll actually know how I did it. So I'll come back over here to layers, and as I mentioned, I really like to label these things, so I'll say that I used landscape summer preset, and I misspelled landscape, but you guys all let me slide for that, right? And the next thing I'm going to do is go back over to effects again. And it's a personal preference about how many layers you create. I tend to create more just because I like to really see that history of what I've done. And so this is going to work on all the layers that I've already done. So when I come back into effects, it's going to basically merge things together as my starting point, and then allow me to add effects on top of what I've already done. And so with that, I'm going to come over here to one that's really popular with a lot of photographers, and one of the really great new features that onOne introduced a little while back. It's called dynamic contrast. And so dynamic contrast just brings in a lot of detail into the shadows, highlights, and midpoint tones of your image. And so I'll apply this, and you see immediately, if I do a before and after, I get a lot more detail in the clouds, along the trees. There's just, image just kind of gets a lot more dramatic. And in fact, Sometimes, you may want to dial some of that back. You can come in here and make adjustments to that. So you don't have to accept exactly what the preset does. Just consider it a starting point. And for today, I'm going to just go ahead and leave that alone. And I'm going to go create another layer, because if I didn't do that step right there and I went and clicked on something else, it would replace what I already did. That's really frustrating for those who haven't used the product before. I see my students get confused by that from time to time. So now that I've got a new layer to work on, I'm going to come in over here to photo filters. And these represent the screw-on type of filters that you can purchase and put on top of your lens. And the reason why a lot of times people tell you, well, you don't need to buy those anymore, is because you can do it in Photoshop. Well, you can not only do it in Photoshop, you can do it in onOne Perfect Photo Suite as well. And so save your money, don't buy the filters, just use the software. It's a lot cheaper too. You get a lot of bang for your buck out of this product. And so I'm going to come in and just look and see which one excites me. This one's pretty cool, but I think I'm going to go for a little more subtle effect and just do the ADA. And so now that I have that there, I want to go ahead and create another layer, because I want to keep building on what I'm doing here. And here's a really cool one you're going to love. This was kind of a golden hour shot, and there's a sunshine set of presets that help you get that golden hour look. And so one that I use often is Radiance. I generally tend to use either natural, Radiance, or sunshine most often, but all of them are great. It's just personal taste. And so I'll apply Radiance. Now Radiance is really good, but sometimes it's a little too much. And the reason why I actually chose this one today is to actually show you this, is that I can come in and change the layer opacity. And so as I do this, you can see, and again, it's slow because we're recording this webinar, you can see that it reduces the effect on just this layer. If I were to do master opacity, it's going to change all of these as to how they affect the image. That's not what I want. It gets rid of all my effects. I'm just wanting to reduce a little bit of the sunshine effect. And the reason why I'm doing it is because that effect tends to be a little on the dark side. There's lots of ways that you can edit. This isn't the only way, but that's what I chose to do for this image. And so now that I've got this dialed back to where I'm comfortable with it, I'm going to go ahead and add one more. Or, I could stop and create a new layer. It just depends on what I'm doing. For the webinar today, I'm going to kind of minimize how many layers I create just for the sake of saving time. And for this one, I want to just go ahead and sharpen this image up. Well, cool thing is that there's some sharpening presets. For those people who are new to Photoshop, that's one of the complaints I hear, is they don't have a clue what this radius, threshold, and amount values are supposed to be. It's kind of some sort of voodoo as to what value you should choose. So the cool thing here is they've got a bunch of really great presets for you. So if you're going to be printing, there's some printing presets. And one of the things I've done is written a book on printing. That's one area where people really mess up, is that what's sharp for your screen is not sharp enough for your print. So generally you'll need a little heavier sharpening, which will look horrible on screen, but it'll look great when you actually print it out on paper. So if you've ever been just unsatisfied with your images printing a little soft, these print presets are just really great. And then also the same thing for screen. That there's some that are optimized for the screen and the resolution, the size of images you're using. So for this one, this is what I'm calling my creative sharpening, not my final sharpening. So I'm going to actually do the high pass sharpening. And when I did that, it sharpened the sky. I love how it sharpened my trees, but I'm not really too happy about how it sharpened my sky. Well, cool thing about this product is that it has a brush so where you can paint that effect out. And this magical little thing called the perfect brush. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here so you can actually see what I'm doing. And I'm going to change this mask color. So as I paint the perfect brush, and at first it's going to seem a little funny, but just bear with me. And I let go. It's going to give me a little bit of a, oops. fine line along the edge so that that actually gives me the effect that I'm looking for. If I actually come over here and show you my mask, let me actually do this here. So mask dark, oops, after. You can see that it's actually creating something just right along the tree line. I can come in and paint these manually, or I can take advantage of the perfect brush. Sometimes, depending on how much detail there is and how similar things are, it struggles a little bit more than others. And the thing that people struggle with a lot of times is that you don't need to be super precise for most standard resolutions. If you're going to be printing a big 36 by 24, absolutely, you got to be really detailed in what you do. If you're going to just be showing it on the web, printing it, up to a 8 by 10 or even a little bit bigger than that, you don't need to be super precise. But this thing will create a really nice mask for you, and you don't have to really spend a lot of time fooling around with it like you have to do in Photoshop. So it's a cool feature. So I'm going to apply that, and then I can say what I did for this one. I did a little dynamic contrast, 08A filter, sunshine, and sharpen HPF, high pass filter. Again, this is just personal preference. You don't need to do that, but that's how I like to keep track of what I'm doing. And so now that I'm done here, I'm going to go ahead and just save. Oops. Again, this is webinar bugs we're dealing with here. So now we've saved it. This wants me to just do a close. I've got a before and after. So I'm going to come here, show you before, after. So we didn't spend much time. I mean, more than half of that time was spent talking, but I got an image that, has a lot more pop, detail and drama, and, honestly represents what I saw much better than the original. If I wanted to come in here and, oops, do some cropping because there's just too much, space down the bottom. Oops. That's actually the scaling. This is cropping. Don't apply. I can come in here and get a much more, balanced image to what I'd like, and then crop that guy. And so, all the basic stuff that you're used to doing in Photoshop or Photoshop Elements, a lot of these things are here. So, you can really stay in one product and do it all. So let's go do some more images. Save that. Go over here to Browse. I'm pressing the G key to get back to this grid view so I can see what all we've got. And then let's go take a look at this one here. One of the common things we do is we take pictures of people and want to enhance those. And there's a really great product that onOne came out with not too long ago called Perfect Portrait. So let's go ahead and edit a copy. And what this is going to do is it's going to try to detect the face. Now this is a pretty easy one. And if we have time, I'll actually show you one that's not so easy, just so you can see how do you deal with really difficult faces or things like sunglasses and still use this product. And so when I double click on it, what it's going to do is it's going to try to guess the size of the eyes and the mouth and put these little tools on here. And I'm going to show you what they do. But the important thing to keep in mind is that what you want these things to do is to cover the whites of the eyes. So you want this little blue thing to basically be in the center of the pupil. And you don't have to be super, super, super precise unless you're going to be printing really big. But I do try to get it as good as I can. And I'm using a mouse right now as well. And then I'm going to come over here. And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to basically define where the lip color is for the top lip and the bottom lip. I don't want it to be on her teeth because what's going to happen here is that it's going to know that the section in between here is teeth and the sections on the outer two portions, that those are lips. and we have adjustments for those. Now I can come in and just do a bunch of manual adjustments, and that's all cool, but something else that I can do is use one of these presets. And again, I can click on one of these and see all the different style presets they have. Now some of them, like contrast reducer, ugh, I hate it. But others, you know, they're really great starting points. And again, these are, you know, just people have gone through and come up with the settings they use most often, but you can create your own presets and come up with something that works well for you, and you can take this as a starting point. So one of the ones I like to start with is subtle, because I don't want my models to look too plasticky, but I do want to just get rid of some of the, you know, blemishes that naturally occur on people. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to come over here and turn color correction on. And I'm going to choose an ethnicity. So she's Asian. And if I turn this off and on, you're going to see what happens. Actually, let's hide these controls so it's easier to see. If with it off, you know, she's Asian, so there's a little bit more of a yellow tone, so it's compensating for that to give a little bit more warm tone. You know, I can always manually adjust this, since not every Asian's exactly the same color, and depending on your lighting and makeup and so on, that can skew things. But you know, there's some values that are used most frequently for, you know, common skin color types, so they include that, which I think is a really cool and helpful feature. You know, for the eyes and the mouth, check this out. So I'm going to go crazy here. I'm just going to crank up whitening all the way, and so I turn that off and on. Watch what happens to the teeth and the eyes. Excuse me. For this one controls mouth, this one controls eyes. Watch what happens here to the eyes. Notice how the whites of the eyes get really bright. And what value you choose is up to you. And also, you know, how much you dial in depends on how white the model's eyes are to begin with. Younger people tend to have whiter eyes. Older people tend to have a little bit more color and yellow and red in their eyes. So there's not one size fits all values. You just kind of slide and see what feels right. The other thing that's really cool is detail. You know, I'll kind of crank that one up, because you see how that gives it like a real cool glow reflection of the catch lights and so on. Kind of makes the eyes look a little glassy. Love that effect. And you know, I'll dial into something that just feels good. You know, it's a slider. Drag it back and forth until you feel happy with what you got. Same thing here with the mouth. You know, we can go crazy and look like she's been brightening her teeth all the time. Or we can do something that's just maybe a little brighter than normal. This model has great teeth, well maintained, but you can always brighten up a little bit, just for, you know, more healthy, clean look. And then, you know, if I wanted to adjust her lip color, I could too. This is going to just make her lips more pink. Now, I don't usually use that one very often, but you certainly can. Another thing to point out is that, you know, if your model has a blemish, like right here, she has a little mole, I can come in here with a little brush, and I generally try to make this only as big as it needs to be, and I'll just click on that, and boom, that's gone. And this is so much easier to use than what you have in Lightroom with the stupid little circle things that it does. So I actually prefer this one. If I had to do something hard like this hair, I've got this little magic eraser thing here that's similar to the content aware feature inside Photoshop. So I'll click on that, and boom, what it does is it erases it and it blends in with what's there. And so it's a pretty cool feature. And you know, how good it looks depends on how much time you spend with it. You can spend a ton of time on a face, or you can just spend a little bit of time. If I come over here, let's see, actually I want to go ahead and fit this out large and show you the before and the after. And you can just click the preview checkbox as well. I'm not sure how well this is coming across over the webinar, because sometimes these things paint so slowly over the web that you don't see the effect very well. But you know, really big difference, and I didn't spend much time. It wasn't hard to use. I like this a lot better than you know, Professional Portrait, I think it's called, or whatever. You know, it's a more automated system, but you spend so much time in that product getting effects that honestly look a lot more fake than what you have here. So I'm a big fan of this product. It saves me a bunch of time. And you know, the fact that you have the ability to brush and both do normal retouches and content-aware type of retouches. That's fantastic. So I'm going to go ahead and save and close that. And I could go do other effects and things if I wanted to it as well. But if I go here, you'll see now that I have my original JPEG untouched, and then I have my PSD file, which I could go open up in Photoshop. And if there was something else that I wanted to do, I could go open up Photoshop and finish it. The Perfect Photo Suite works with Photoshop, so I could use this directly from within there. I don't have to use the standalone product. I can tell you the standalone product is a lot faster than when I'm in Photoshop and doing all the actions and stuff. So I tend to use this as my starting point. If I need to go finish something in Photoshop, I'll just close this and go open up Photoshop and go from there. So let's go ahead and take a look at another image. This time we're going to go over here to this Asia image. And this is one that I liked, but honestly, it really looked kind of blah. I was really disappointed, with these gray clouds. But the fall colors were really cool, and I thought this shot had so much potential. So I was really happy with what I ultimately got from Perfect Photo Effects. And so let's show you what I did. Well, actually, take that back. There's one thing I want to do before I even go there. One of the products that I use as a starting point a lot of times is Enhance, and this is just like your basic stuff that if you use Lightroom, your kind of basic tone adjustments, brightness, and so on. And so if I know a lot of people who they'll get Photoshop or they'll get Photoshop Elements, and all they really do is click auto color, auto levels, because they never really had time to learn and how to use those and stuff. So if you're an auto colors, an auto level type of person, that functionality is here, and you can use adjustments that are really friendly for making things brighter and more detail and adding vignettes. So there's a lot of simple stuff that you can do. For this one here, I'm just going to go ahead and click on the auto levels and click on auto color. Use that as a starting point. If I come back over here to layers, you'll see that it created an enhanced layer for me. And then now let's go over to effects and go do some more with this. So I'm going to come in and use one of my favorites again, called Dynamic Contrast. And I don't have to click on that thing. I can always expand this and just choose one. It's just personally, I like to do that one because it gives me quick visibility and bigger squares as to what the different effects are going to do. And sometimes I go into a preset group and say, or a filters group, and think that I'm going to use this one, but when I see those thumbnails, it causes me to change my mind and experiment. And that's when we do some of our best work, is when we experiment with different things. So with that, I'm going to come in here and show you a little trick that I learned from Matt Koskowski. He did a great seminar with onOne, and we've applied this dynamic contrast to all the tones, including the highlights, midtones, and shadows. But you can sometimes get a better effect if you skip the midtones. One of the products that I've used is the Nik software suite, and when I use its tonal contrast, which is a similar concept, first thing I do is turn off the midtones. And so this allows you to do the same thing if you're coming from that product or have experience with it. So I'm going to say highlights, and then I'm going to go add a new layer here, and then I'm going to do dynamic contrast again, natural, and then this time I'm going to say apply to the shadows. And now what this has done is this has given me dynamic contrast for just the highlights and the shadows, and skip the midtones so that it's not quite so crunchy looking. So then if I come back over here to layers, generally I'll make a note that I did that. So dynamic contrast, so highlights and shadows. I'll come back to effects. And keep that in mind for anything you do. And the apply to functionality is a really fantastic feature for this, especially when you just want to impact just a portion of your image or a range of tones and so on. There's blending masks as well, so if you're coming from Photoshop or didn't want to upgrade or didn't want to pay for the subscription, you've got blending options as well. So with that said, let's go do another cool thing with this one. Let's do a photo filter. And if you're noticing that I'm using a lot of the common things, when you build your workflow, you find yourself doing the same things. Time to time, these big windows with all these previews will force you to do something different and experiment. So don't think that these are the only values that you can use. This is just what I'm doing for my demo today. For this one here, I'm going to use this graduated blue because what I'm really interested in is getting a little bit more blue in this dull, dingy sky. And I can come down here and turn up the strength really high to see exactly what's being impacted and make some adjustments to where this thing is. So if I pull this up, I can say, okay, it's just going to affect this part of the city, and I can adjust the transition and rotation and stuff. So if you don't have a perfectly straight line, this can be really helpful in using this effect as a starting point and seeing what's going on. And then now I can kind of dial it back to something that feels about right. I'm not wanting to go too crazy, but I am wanting to get it to be a little bit more pleasing to the eye and color. Maybe down just a little bit more. Again, personal preference as to how much you crank that up. So I'm going to come back over here to layers. I'm going to say photo filter grad blue. And of course, come back to effects because there's all kinds of good stuff we can do in there. So this time, I'm going to come back to the sunshine. We got a lot of gold in here. So this is just a wow effect that you get when you do this, that these golds really pop, the trees look really cool. I can come in here and adjust the saturation and make changes that meet my vision for the image, but I'm really happy just right off the bat with what I got from that. So for the demo today here, I'm going to go ahead and just go back to layers, and I'm going to spare you for time's sake, and just go back and do another one here called Tone Enhancer. So let's see, Tone Enhancer, there we go. So for Tone Enhancer, they have an option called Lighter. And I like what that did to my sky, but I didn't really like what that did down here. So this means I need to use a mask. Now I can use mask, or I can stay in here and use the masking brush like we did earlier. So for time's sake today, I'm going to make sure I turn on Perfect Photo Brush. And bear with me a moment while I erase the effect from the sky. It may seem counterintuitive, but you'll see why I'm doing it this way. And again, you need to be somewhat precise, but you don't need to be just totally anal about this unless you're going to print really, really big. And so I'm going to come along, and then I can just fill this stuff in. A little more sloppy up here. And then when I let go, boom, I've got a nice mask. And what I want to do is come up here to mask and say invert. And so now I've got the dark down below where I want it and the light up top where I want it. And if I felt like, oh, well, it's a little lighter than I wanted, again, I can always change my lower layer opacity and kind of dim that down some. So there's lots of things we could do. We can also still use any of these since we're just applying that effect just to the sky. So I'm going to go ahead and apply. I could do sharpening or whatever I want to do, but that pretty much takes care of that image. Oops, I think I forgot to close it. Oh no. One very important thing there was that I did actually forget to close that one, so that was my mistake. Although I'm not sure why I didn't get a prompt for that. I thought I'd usually get one. So lesson learned there. But I can recreate that effect pretty quickly. It was probably 10 minutes with a lot of talking. So in 5 minutes I can get that image edited back. I do have a before and after of it available over here, so you can see before and after, and that's what I just did. So big difference, little minor bit of editing effort.